Morning, all.
Morning.
Hopefully my internet will work today. It cut out on me yesterday, so fingers crossed.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
I see that it is 10 o'clock, and as is required in our procedural bylaw, I'll call this meeting to order pending the election of the chair. I'd like to recognize that we're conducting our business in the territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth nations, as well as some of us coming from Coast Salish territories, perhaps. And I note that we are also fortunate to have our offices located in the territories of the Whapechesett and Sashat First Nations. I'd like to also provide notice to this that this committee meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube, available through the Regional District website. So I will conduct the election of the chair now, and because of the pandemic and the fact that this is a Zoom meeting, this will be held through alternate processes in which that should there be more than one director nominated for a position of chair and subsequently vice chair, I'll ask that the voting members of this committee email their votes in confidence to Janice Hill, and that is at jhill@acrd.bc.ca. And Janice and I will tabulate the results of the elections and announce that. So with that having been said, are there any, just let me make this screen large so I can see all the participants. Are there any nominations for the position of chair, please? Calling first time.
I'd like to nominate John McNabb again.
Director McNabb, do you accept that nomination?
Sure. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any other nominations for position of chair? Calling a third time for any other nominations for position of chair? Hearing none, it's my pleasure, Director McNabb, to congratulate you for being position of chair for the AV and Bamfield Committee.
Thanks. We'll get on with the business. Thank you very much.
Oh, if I may, shall I call for a position of vice chair?
That would be a good thing.
Okay,
sure.
Let's get that done then. Are there any nominations, please, for the position of vice chair?
I'll nominate Director Beckett.
Director Beckett, do you accept that nomination?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations, please? Calling a second time for position of vice chair. And calling a third time, please, for nominations for position of vice chair. Hearing none and following a couple of hard-fought campaigns, congratulations, Director Beckett, for the position of vice chair. And I will, with pleasure, turn the meeting over to Chair McNabb. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. And I've asked for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Beckett and Bodner. And approval of the minutes of November 4th, 2020. Seems like a long time ago for some reason or other.
So moved.
Director Paulson and Director Shannon. So is there anything in there that is problematic? Everybody likes it? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. So we have 3 delegations here today, and I just like to remind the delegates that the allotted time is 10 minutes per delegation, and then plus the question period after, which is included in that 10 minutes. When it comes up around 10 minutes, I'll let you know by giving you a little wave, and you can try to finish her off. So first of all, we have Pat Deacon, City of Port Alberni Economic Development Manager, with regards to economic development activities in the region. So go ahead there, Pat.
Thank you, Chair McNabb. Essentially, I'd like to talk about 9 areas that we're focused in at the present time. And the first is reconciliation. We have been working with both Sashot and Hoopachesset to identify projects that could be done, should be done in partnership. And currently, or what's planned for this year with Sashot are that we are intent on converting the clock tower in Harbor Key to a story tower that will tell the true story of how Sashot were forced off their winter village and wolf ritual site in 1865 to make way for a sawmill. And we're also working with them on the creation of a food truck pod and market at Clutha Haven Marina. Our primary focus with Hoopachesset is is under a non-disclosure agreement. So I can't talk about that, but we are talking about a partnership in a venture in the community. The second thing I'd like to talk about is support for the small and medium enterprises in the community. And I see that Bill Collette is also on the call here. So I will just speak briefly to the projects that we've launched in combination with Community Futures, Alberni Clayoquot, the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, the Port Alberni Port Authority, and the Alberni Valley Employment Center. And those include $1 million homegrown loan program that was announced at the outset of the pandemic. And all of this was done in concert with the Emergency Operations Center at the Regional District. We did a phone survey of every business in the community. We did advocacy for businesses that were not initially eligible for relief measures. We provided municipal support for business use of public spaces to conform to distancing measures. And we phoned all restaurants, coffee shops, and brew pubs in the community to make them aware of that. We did a business walk in our uptown area to identify a small project that would support them in attracting customers back into the uptown area. In October, we did an online survey with business owners, job seekers, and consumers at large. We launched a gift card site, e-commerce site with free access to businesses for 3 months. We've done infrastructure improvements to support the creation of that food truck pod and market. And we've also offered free consulting services, and the Chamber's almost weekly letter at times has also provided with small and medium enterprises with information that grants were out there. Bill can talk more fully about each of those. I'm going to move on to focus on the food hub. As you know, the city was successful in securing a $750,000 grant towards the creation of the food hub. After discussions with the board of the Port Authority, they agreed to make the former fish plant available as the site of the food hub. So it's a 17,500 square foot building. They also put up $500,000 towards the creation of a Canadian Food Inspection Agency certified facility. We've focused on seafood in there. So we have 2 oyster companies. We have a seaweed company. We have a company that's smoking seafood and shell food. We do have a company that is focused on food products from the forest, packaging and processing them and making them available. And then just recently, we opened the commercial kitchen as an incubator for the farm community that wants to take their produce to the next level. We also just last week learned that we'd secured funding for a community workforce response grant. It's a food processing program where participants will be tutored and trained by North Island College. They will use the kitchen in the food hub, and they will also use the kitchen in the shelter society, and they will also be given a plot of land on the shelter farm to continue to grow their product. Moving on to seaweed, we've been working very closely with Cascadia Seaweed. Those of you that have followed their work know it's like hanging on to the coattails of a very fast moving company. We are exploring a Canadian Center for Seaweed Research that is looking at the full realm of the full supply chain of growing, harvesting, processing, drying, processing seaweed. And we're looking at every vertical that seaweed is going into. So nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, food for cattle, and a variety of others. And then trails, where the city has been focusing on trail development. So several of our grant applications have gone in to bring the Key-to-Key trail into focus, and also to link Roger Creek Park with the Scott Kenny Trail. I'm pleased to see yesterday that there is funding for the third stage of trail development on the Alberni Inlet, and we will work with proponents for that. Municipal regional district tax. I know that many of the directors have been contacted either by Callum Matthews or Steve Nickel and told about the project to bring about that tax for tourism development purposes. Lastly, I'm serving as a resource person to the Alberni Valley Regional Airport work. So there are other things that we could talk about, the tens of millions of dollars that are being poured into new development in the community, but I will leave it at that.
Well, thanks, Pat. I mean, the reason for us inviting you to give us a presentation was because of our consideration on the grant and aids, and looking at the challenging year coming up in 2021 and into 2022. You know, we want to see what opportunities are there for the regional district areas in the Alberni Valley to benefit from more of a push in economic development. So I'll let the other directors chime in there and see what we got the questions. Somebody? Director Bodner?
Thank you, Pat. That was nice to hear all that information. I'd like to know the trail you're talking about, does that include the China Creek Trail? I know there was some kerfuffle about a bridge that had to go across the creek there. Would that be part of this trail that you're talking about?
It is, Director Bodner, yes.
Director Shannon?
Thank you. Thank you, Pat, for presenting today. Sorry, I've got a cold. I had a question about the MRDT tax. Since you brought it up, when we had a conversation with Callum, he had mentioned in almost like showing some good faith, if you will, and was kind of looking for money from the regional district as this gets rolling. Can you speak more to that at all?
That's a bit of a surprise to me. Alberni Valley Tourism, which has been up until January 1st, a collection of 4 properties in Port Alberni, and the city had committed to finance the work on the MRDT. And we've also secured some funding from Destination BC and Tourism Vancouver Island towards a strategic plan that would address the challenges of opening tourism operations in 2021. And so in my mind, the funding for all of that work is already in place.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, because I mean, I had my meeting with Director McNabb, so unless you recall it differently, Director McNabb, he had mentioned, because then we had kind of talked, well, maybe we can talk grant and aids, unless I misunderstood it, but Callum had brought that up when we talked to him about that.
Yeah, no, I think that the only connection to the regional district is that we're going to be the distributor of the funds. So as we were before, and so the funds come in from the provincial government to us and then back to the organization. So okay. It's just a paper trail. I mean, it's, we previously have, through economic development and other things, have been involved in tourism promotion in the regional district, but this is kind of a net zero kind of thing. Might charge them $1,000 or something for the staff time, but so I don't see anybody else with their hand up or wanting to get in there, but my question really is, thank you, Director Cody. My question really is there available time, available energy for the Economic Development Department to be actively promoting projects in the regional district in a greater manner in 2021. So basically, if we put more money in, is there going to be a net benefit back to us? Is there projects out there that could be funded?
That's me.
Yes, we'd be, I approach my work on the basis that a project is wherever a project is best suited, that's where we will land it. And as a consequence, and as you'll have seen from the presentation on the industrial land survey, we are looking everywhere for sites for appropriate projects. And as it happens, there's a request for a site for a forest industry related project. They're needing 5 acres. We are searching for a site for them outside of the municipal boundaries. And we're also talking to a proponent who is wanting to build an 80,000 square foot building for the production of a plant protein manufacturing process. We actually worked with that proponent for approximately 2 years, trying to land them. They eventually decided to go and build a facility in Coldstream. And just 2 days ago, he got back in touch with me and said, we've opened the facility there. We're looking for a larger, to open a larger facility, and we want to reopen discussions with you. And when we had last concluded discussions with that individual, we were looking at a site in the regional district. And so that's where we will resume those discussions and negotiations. And then there is, as we've also seen, an opportunity to promote site development at the regional airport. So it's a combination of, yes, we will, if there is a project that is identified as of interest on the part of the regional board or the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee, we will definitely work with you on that. And as I've said, I don't limit my thinking to municipal boundaries.
Thank you. So I have Director Cote.
Thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties I've been putting on you. Just a question about tourism. And is there any part of of what you've been presenting that covers like COVID recovery plan for the Alberni Valley and Bamfield? And so will it align with the ACRD's new strategic plan? Thanks.
Yeah, the whole or a good chunk of the focus with the strategic planning that we're doing for MRDT is all about how do we approach reopening tourism businesses during COVID or as we go forward.
Okay, Director Paulson. Sorry.
Patrick, thanks for the update this morning. It's great to see that there's stuff on the horizon. I wonder if maybe for this group and for anybody who might be watching, if you might want to just touch base on some of the projects that are ongoing or in progress right now. And, you know, I'm thinking about although the COVID year was a really tough year for the world, Port Alberni had some positive stuff going on. And I'll just throw a couple of examples, and Patrick, I'm sure you'll have more to add, but the continuing investment by the Sand Group, the district group in the old high school site, Western Canada Marine Response. I'm not sure where the water bottling facility is at in their development, but maybe you could just talk about the positivity that's gone on in the last year. We've been beat up, but also there's been some good stuff going on.
Thanks, Director Paulson. There is a lot going on. We've been actually really fortunate, given that COVID arrived right on the heels of a 9-month forest industry strike. We've been surprised and pleased at the resilience of most of the small and medium enterprises in the community. We have lost track of the number of businesses that told us they had their best year ever in 2020. Admittedly, those are some of the larger businesses, some of the automobile dealers, some of the boat dealers, Canadian Maritime Engineering, but others have told us that they've done very well. As most of you will know, we were very fortunate when Paper Excellence announced a $13 million investment in the mill here to produce or expand their capacity to produce food grade paper and packaging. The Sand Group, I actually toured the facility this morning. Again, as they've made progress, and they're continuing to put cold hard cash into that site adjacent to Paper Excellence, the Catalyst Mill. It's hard to get a firm number out of what's been invested at the moment. Part of that is their desire not to spill the beans with competition, because they are intent on bringing state-of-the-art, world-class fiber processing facilities that will maximize the use of the wood and minimize waste. But it includes finger jointer, dry kilns, painting areas, veneer slicing, molders, planers, even a pellet plant. And there are also small businesses that are investing in the community at the present time. We've got Reapply Wood Design and Research, which will be the first Port Alberni business going after B Corporation status, and they small company will hire a total of 17 people, but are taking an underutilized species, which is hemlock, slicing it diagonally and putting it together. We've got Alberni Brewing, which will open soon to join Twin City, who recently were awarded the BC Ale Trails Best Brewery Experience of 2020. The list does go on. The Uchuckalsit tribe water bottling business is getting closer to opening. WCMRC has been hiring and getting people out on the waterfront. Canadian Maritime Engineering has grown their staff over the pandemic, and they're now at 75 employees. And part of the reason for mentioning this is I'm sure you will all realize that many of the employees of these businesses live in Cherry Creek, in Beaver Creek, in Beaufort Mountain, Sprout Lake. So they're not just within the city's boundaries. Director Paulson also mentioned the work that's being done by District Energy. So we've got a number of housing starts, multifamily dwellings going up on Bird Street. And again, I see the contractors' trucks go by my house every single day, and many of them are also based in the electoral areas. So I hope that answers that.
Okay, we kind of want to get the ball rolling here because my headset only lasts for 3 hours and then we got problems. So, so we got Penny, Mike, and Tanya, and then we'll wrap this piece up. Thanks.
Thanks. Just wanted to expand on the water bombing. What was Director Paulson talking about?
That's the Uchuckalsit
Yeah, sorry, water bottling, not bombing.
bottling.
So
Talk to Colson about the other one.
yeah, so that brings me to what I was getting at was the airport and the new study that we're going through, strategic planning for our new airport expansion. So I know that you're a part of that as well, and hoping that there'll be something that comes from that study and our openness and our open airspace, and being able to promote that and link that through a lot of the business that you already discussed. We really want to promote our airport. I think that's a priority for the regional district. In my opinion, it is. Jobs is one thing, but this is a international open door, very similar to the port, and also selling us as a tax-free zone. I think that that's very important going forward. Raw material that comes in and goes out internationally is not taxed, as I recall. So that's an important fact to also be integrating into how we're promoting our area. Anyways, thank you.
Thanks, Director Cote. You will remember that I was very actively involved in securing some funding for the expansion of the airport, and we contributed to the feasibility study and business plan that helped to secure the financing. I'm very conscious of the fact that we reached out to the community and have secured their support for what is now, somewhere between $7 and $8 million investment in it. So we definitely want to realize a return on investment. I'm excited about the work of the committee and look forward to that. So I'll definitely be promoting them. And I serve on the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance's free trade zone, foreign trade zone initiative. So I'm very familiar with that.
Okay, we've got Mike and Tanya and Dr. Minion. Did I see your hand up? Oh, okay. All right. So Mike and Tanya, let's get on with the next subject.
Yeah, just really briefly, I just wanted to make sure the committee was aware. We talked about the industrial land strategy, which I was involved, but it was certainly led by Pat. Pat's also been very involved in the agriculture plan work and the food hub, and we regularly talk about development, potential development or potential properties within the regional district, and certainly potential investors are directed our way, and so we certainly have a lot of interaction at the staff level. Thank you.
Dr. Shannon?
Thank you. Just a quick question on the agriculture end, and kind of if it could relate to the Doc Plus. As you would know, Pat, that we recently got designation for slaughterability for Class D in the regional district. And I'm sure, as you've probably heard from staff and from the Ag Development Committee, seeing a little bit of next step is there's a little bit of a hindrance with actual abattoir facilities where animals can get processed. Recently, Al's Feather Be Gone, I believe, is shut down. So I'm just wondering if you've heard, or if there's a plan to try and secure something like that for security in our area for the producers who have cattle, pigs, sheep, that kind of thing. Thank you.
I'm conscious that it's something that is desired, and I'll have you know that Bob Haynes bent my ear for about an hour, or vented for about an hour the other day. So I'm conscious of the need. I think the Ag Development Committee will have to lay out the next steps, and I'll support that work.
Okay, unless there's anything else, I don't see anything else. Thank you very much, Pat, and we'll get back to you on our contribution for the 2021. And so now we have Bill Collette from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce regarding the Chamber of Commerce grant and aid and an update on Mclean's Mill.
Sorry, I have one question for staff.
Sure.
I just want to know, do we have we seen the budget for economic development?
It's a grant and aid, and that's why we've actually asked Pat to come, so that we can consider the amounts that we want to contribute from each of our areas towards grant and aid. So
I was just wondering what the budget was for the city.
Well, it's all grant and aid.
Oh, the total budget for economic. I can get that information, and we will bring back the grant and aid to the March 10th Committee of the Whole for the directors to determine their amounts.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Collette.
Thanks very much for welcoming me here today. And it's a little challenge to follow Pat Deacon today, because really what he's been doing And really what the city's been doing is phenomenal. Just if I say so myself, from economic development, from all the good stuff that's happening in a very challenging year. So kudos to Pat and his team and really everybody at the city. So what I'm just basically talking about today here is our application for the Grant and Aid program that we appreciate the ACRD's contribution every year. And I've heard some questions here today about tourism. I think it's really important that we put our foot on the gas in terms of tourism as we look forward. Yes, it's kind of stagnant right now, but the opportunity is immense right in front of us. Just yesterday, I received a notification from Destination BC talking about the reality in their opening of provincial parks. And that'll be online booking starting early March and for BC residents. And then they don't open it up to other residents until July, but they expect it to be full, and it will be full. So we need to be ready for all of that in terms of tourism. Our role here at the Chamber, operating the visitor center, and where we need support from the regional district is just some of the items that I've identified in my application. Right now, the biggest thing we're working on, we're taking advantage of the slow period, is a new visitor website. So up till now, our visitor website is part of the Chamber's website, and that's never been ideal because people don't know where to find us. If somebody's trying to find us from Brandon, Manitoba, they don't really know to go to the Chamber of Commerce. So we've now got a new website under development, and each of you are welcome to take a look at it. It's not really live, so you'll have to go to the trial version. But we've secured 4 domains, all of which will link to the primary domain, which will be portalbernivisitorcenter.ca. And we're spelling center both ways so that anybody can find us. So it'll be Port Alberni Visitor Center, RE or ER.ca, and also Alberni Valley Visitor Center.ca. If you go visit that site, I encourage you to take a look right now, primarily at the things to do page. We've got 25, I believe, is where I'm at right now, things to do in the Alberni Valley. And really, it's impressive. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we have in the Alberni Valley. And there's 25 things right now, and I'm missing quite a few. So anyways, that's a major focus for us right now. That's out-of-pocket expense that we've accepted here at the Chamber of Commerce. So that's our big focus right now. Other things we do that we want to bring alive again this year, if we can, once things open up, is our mobile visitor center. We have a branded van that we bring places and we try and promote the valley through that. I'll back up just to our visitor center again. We also have a chat feature on there. And that was recommended by Destination BC, and it's something we've never done before, but I'm thrilled to have it, which means somebody can connect with us at any time from anywhere through the chat feature. And we're committed to responding as soon as we can with that. So once the site's live, we'll start to see activity that way. So if our doors are closed, our doors are open. So that's something new. One of our other challenges this year is and it's going to be a big challenge, is our whole volunteer program. We've had a very successful run at the ambassador program for many years, but COVID-19 put the brakes to all of that. And so we've lost a lot of our ambassadors. So we're going to have to really invest time, energy, and money into recruiting people to assist us once again, especially if BC Parks open up Cathedral Grove. So that's a big focus of ours moving forward, is how we reinvigorate that necessary program, the ambassador program. We're also involved in the visitor guide with the Alberni Valley News, so that's being developed again this year. And you wanted me to talk a little bit about the Mclean Mill. So we did do a presentation to the city a couple of weeks ago with a year-end report. Now, that report's available on our website if you wanted to go there, albernichamber.ca. And you can find the report. It's quite large, so it's difficult to share. But it kind of summarizes what we've done and where we're headed with the Mclean Mill. And again, as tourism starts to recover, and I think both the federal government and provincial government will invest heavily in that, we need to be ready, and we are preparing ourselves for that onslaught of business that's going to come our way. We've got a great team out there now, led by a local woman here, Anita Sutherland, and she's a real visionary with respect to the Mclean Mill. So right now, for your knowledge, in case you're not really aware, we're focusing on 5 areas of business with Mclean Mill. We have a gift shop. The gift shop was quite successful in 2020, and it's beautiful. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to take a peek once we reopen, which will probably be spring break time. We also, of course, have our food services in the Grand Hall, full commercial kitchen in there, and we can do anything. So that's a real objective of ours. There is camping, water power sites to 7 or 8 RV sites. So that's an area. Of course, events is the big question mark. You know, can we, will we, how will we? We still don't know where that's headed, but certainly when it reopens at some point in the future, we have just amazing opportunity out there. You know, weddings, corporate retreats, all that kind of stuff. And we're getting questions now, we're getting inquiries now constantly because of the fact that we have an outdoor venue. So we're getting organizations reach out to us. ADSS grad committee reached out to us as example. They can't do things inside as easily now. So we have that opportunity there, and we're welcoming the chance to provide a needed service. And lastly, with respect to Mclean Mill, is our tour options. So we've got a young woman who's experienced in historical promotion, and she's helping us design both a internal tour at Mclean Mill itself, but also a community-wide tour. So again, once we can pick people up at hotels and motels and B&Bs, we hope to be able to travel the community and bring them to our various sites for them to see. So, you know, all of these things are being worked on. And again, you know, we've still got headwinds. We've got major headwinds, obviously, like everybody with COVID and with the ALR situation there. But we're still facing the wind, and we're still going through it. So, you know, the support of the ACRD is really paramount to our success, and we appreciate you considering it once again.
Thanks very much, Bill. Any questions there? So one question I have is with regards to any amount of funding that might come from the regional district. How is that apportioned or expected to be apportioned between tourism information and business improvement?
Well, as far as I've always understood, the application for the grant and aid was for the tourism component of what we're doing. So we do track everything. And quite frankly, the Chamber of Commerce financially supports our visitor center operations every year. So, you know, whatever comes our way in terms of support on the visitor component helps us out from a chamber perspective, if I'm answering that properly. But, you know, where we take, and I think historically you've provided us with $4,000 a year, and that's just more or less helped our visitor center component out. You know, one of the things I didn't identify, but there we've increased our cost of labor substantially. We had an incident here a little over a year ago that opened my eyes to the fact that we weren't doing things properly. We were operating here, and I'm here at the visitor center today. We were operating with one person on staff on weekend days and many days. And we had a situation that was very concerning from a staff safety point of view. And right that day, we changed our policy. We never have a young woman in here working on her own anymore, even though we're very slow, right? So Saturday, we will have 2 people in here when we hardly have enough work for one. But we're committed to staff safety as we should be. So those cost increases have happened. We've had to invest in that for the safety and security of our staff. And it's just a cost of doing business.
Go ahead, Director Bodner.
Thank you. 2 things I would like to ask about is I had heard in the past or had read something about the camping facility that it should not be on a historical site. And I wonder if you could speak to that. And also, will the train be running?
Okay, so with respect to the camping, I mean, we've done investigation across the country and have determined that other historical sites do permit camping. Most of our camping is actually just outside the boundary of the defined historical site, but a couple sites are within the boundary. So that's something that we're aware of, but we have done the homework that tells us that we're not really doing anything different than what is happening in other historic sites across the country. With respect to the train, that's not an area that I'm really heavily involved in, although I'm a big proponent of getting it back at some point if we possibly can. And I do see it as a tourism asset that we hopefully can provide at some point in the future. You know, I was involved with the Mclean Mill Society back in 2017, and you know, there we made a real concerted effort to promote weddings and big events, and we had no problem saying to a bride and groom, it's going to cost you $3,000 to book the train privately. They wrote the check. So those kinds of opportunities exist for us if we ever are able to get the train. But I recognize it can't really be a burden on the local taxpayer. We have to find different ways to fund it. Just this morning at our board meeting, I've recommended to our board that they support me here and under the chamber umbrella to sign up for a grant website that opens up opportunity that we don't even realize exists, but there's about $4 billion a year given out by foundations across the country. And I want us as the chamber, as a not-for-profit type of organization, to sign up for that so that we can learn about these opportunities and apply for these grants that do exist, $4 billion a year. So these are things we're working on. And again, our activity within the Mclean Mill and indirectly with the train, or the future of the train, is vital. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Okay, I don't see anybody else there. I thank you for your time, Bill. Oh, it looks like we got Penny coming up. Is that correct, Penny?
Yes, I
Okay.
had my hand up.
Sorry.
So I have a question to staff through directly the chair regarding Mclean Mill. That I'm just concerned that we have a situation where it may be double dipping. Maybe a portion of this grant might be added to the Mclean mill, but I just am concerned that they're sort of down here twice. Thanks.
So that's directed to Ms. Go ahead.
Sure. So the Mclean Mill grant and aid goes to the city of Port Alberni to support. So I could look into that further as to whether that gets, I don't believe that gets passed on to the chamber. I think that they use it for their stuff. But I think that the application is clear for that it's to support the other tourism aspects. But I can look into that with city staff and bring a report back to the March 10th committee of the whole if you would like.
Dawn, I could comment on that.
Sure.
Thank you. The Mclean Mill grant and aid goes specifically to Mclean Mill site capital improvements. So it goes to the city, it does not go to the chamber, and the chamber is not responsible for capital improvements at Mclean Mill. They're only responsible for operational. So there's no crossover, in my opinion. The grant and aid that is given to the Chamber of Commerce for the Visitor Center is very separate because they're not responsible for capital works.
Okay, so in closing on this, I thank you for your time, Bill. Our situation here at the regional district is really trying to look on how we can actually be forwarding the economic situation in the Alberni Valley and through the limited amount of funds that we actually have to distribute. And so I thank you for your efforts. It seems like the ball's rolling in the right direction, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. So I'm not quite sure why we stacked this way, because I would have put this application on top, although now you guys really have an understanding of what we're kind of up against as far as where we're investing our dollars. But we have Al and Ted from the Alberni Valley, the Aerosmith Radio Club regarding the grant and aid application for a bunch of radio equipment. So go ahead, whoever's taking care of this. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, I'll take the chair on this.
Okay.
The application, I'd like to thank the committee for inviting us here. The application for the grant and aid was so that we could continue to build our mesh system, which is basically a wireless LAN system throughout the valley, and it will cover all the lifeline resources and with the HDRD EOC. During coastal response, we handled about 1,500 messages to and from the EOC. And had that been a real one, we would likely have had double that in one day. And the system we were using was Packet, where the messages were hand typed out and then brought in to our trailer. And then we would hand type them back into our system and send it out to the regional, or not regional district, but the province or wherever it had to go. Well, since that event, we've learned that what we were doing was inadequate. So we ended up doing some research into it. And since 2018, we've started building what they call a wireless mesh system. It's like a typical office that has a LAN system that is wired, which goes through routers or wireless within the building. Well, ours works throughout the whole valley, and it runs on 2.4 or 5 gig. It gives us upwards of almost 52 to 56 megabits per second. So basically, one person in the EOC could type a message up and send it by email, and it would go to whoever it was addressed to, but it doesn't require the internet, and it doesn't require power, because all the nodes are self-powered either by battery or they're hooked up to mains backup on generator systems. The whole idea was to increase the speed where only one person has to type the message out, and then it goes to whoever it's going to. Along with the system, we are going to have a functional telephone system that will work on the back of it. So basically, if you need a voice communication, you pick up the telephone and give whoever you need to a call on it. Now this all works through our own system, which is like I said, runs on 2.4 or 5 gig. So it's actually radio, but the radio puts out less than 1 watt. So it's point to point, and the nodes, once all the nodes are up, we should be able to cover the whole valley. Presently, we have, I'm not sure how many we have up total right now because it's ongoing all the time. Perhaps Ted can jump in there and give an idea of the whole technical end of it. Ted?
Yes, thank you for seeing us today. As Al said, this is a wireless Ethernet, and it uses a special version of software in each of the radio sites that provide for robustness and redundancy, in that should some site for whatever reason be unavailable, the system can heal itself in that it will attempt to find a way to route the data, and that's really all we're talking about is data around the outage. It is ham radio. We are using equipment that was commercially built for the consumer or commercial wireless industry, but we have, as amateur radios, frequency allocations that are adjacent to those 2.4 and 5 gigahertz allocations. We have a little piece at the 2300 instead of 2400, just below the 2.4 and just above the 5 gig at 5.9, which gives us, we don't have to compete with anybody else in terms of who's using the frequency. All of the Shaw cable wireless routers around, we don't have to compete with those. But the whole purpose is, as Alice said, to provide a reliable, modern communications system for the emergency responders, the people that have to deal with bringing the community back online, as it were, after some event, whatever it may be. We have really 3 sites online at present. Well, 4 sites. There's 21 nodes in total operating out of, I have to think about this all, but I think it's 4 or 5 sites. We're on the regional district building itself. We have been very generously provided support and space on top of the old post office building. Dr. Manson and his group who own that building have been very, very generous in providing us with access to the fan house on top, which gives us an incredible view to the north of the valley. The regional district has been very generous in providing us access to a site at the landfill. There's a water reservoir there on the top of a hill that has a very, very good view of the valley from the west. We have been given permission to be on the reservoir on the Johnson Street Hill next to, behind the Chevy dealer, next to the casino, which will provide some fill towards the CSHAT and towards the CSHAT offices and stuff down on the river in the lowlands there, and towards the Cherry Creek Fire Hall, to include them in the system. The Beaver Creek Fire Hall has a direct link. That was, I'm directly involved with the fire department there, and the former fire chief Starrett was very, very supportive of getting that site up and running. And so what we're talking about now is a little bit more money than we have in the past, because we have two sites that we really need to develop to fill in the last of them. We'll call it the backbone or the trunk, even though it's not really like that. It's a giant fishnet in essence. We'd like to be able to we'd like to get school district permission to be on the high school, because the auditorium roof has a very good, binoculars and line of sight view with the landfill, and then we need to develop. We've sort of at an experimental status on the Johnson Street site, so we need to develop that into a more permanent situation. So and then ultimately, and that's something that we're speaking with Heather and whatnot, is to connect with the end user groups, the people that are going to actually have the phone, have the email connection in their site, the hospital, the emergency social services, wherever they wind up, the high school and city works and the fire departments, the native groups, anybody else would have an interest and a need to communicate with the EOC in the event of some disaster, whether it's dealing with caring for the citizens, or dealing with the recovery efforts after an event. And this whole system is built to survive without support. The Argyle Street, we call it Argyle Street, has solar power. The landfill has solar power. Johnson Street, when we build it, will be solar powered. I believe that the high school may have a generator, but if not, then we would have to look at some kind of solar power. The whole thing is this has to survive past that 72-hour window that they talked about. So anyway, I'm sorry for running on. If there's any questions, I'd love to answer them.
So the one question I have to either Ted or Al is this year the regional district is really pushed in just resources and finances. Is there a possibility to do this in 2 stages? I mean, I understand that portion of the mesh is working now, and is it possible to do 1 node instead of 2? Do the next one next year?
I'll take this, Al. Absolutely, John. There's 2 sites, and we have a footing on the Johnson Street site. It's important for us to try to connect the Cherry Creek Fire Department and to provide a portal for the First Nations out on the river. And so we could certainly do Johnson Street this year and delay the high school, which we have not got permission or even really started much in the way of discussions, and postpone that for next year if that's how it works. Or if there's an opportunity later in the year for some other funding source to move that along. This isn't going to be finished anytime soon, because it's still developing. It was just an idea that came out of our poor performance, as I say, as part of the exercise, and an attempt to to make the whole thing a whole lot better for the regional district. Really, that's who we're working for in the event of some FUBAR.
So have you looked at the consensus, the water, Beaver Creek water system property has a tower for North Island 911. Have you looked at that location as far as broadcasting is concerned?
Yes, actually we have, John. I talked with the North Island One Corp, like Randy Zalschuk is their technical guy there, and he was initially opposed to any incursion on their tower. The Ham Club has a site there on top of the old reservoir, but it's really not tall enough to be of any value. This is microwave, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz is microwave, and it really needs a line of sight. And even though that site works for fire dispatch and their VHF radio stuff, it doesn't see enough of the important parts of the valley in an optical line of sight to be of a lot of value. It could, something down the road, certainly we could, you know, when we have everything else in place, add something there just as an additional knot in the fishnet to provide an additional redundancy more than anything.
Yeah, okay, it's just that I know somebody that knows somebody, so we might be able to get something there, but yes, Director Beckett. You're muted.
Thank you. I saw Director Cote, but now that I'm on the line, I'll just jump in and go back to you, Kenny, if that's all right.
Oh, so sorry, you're down on my left-hand side here, kind of blind side. Okay, Director Cote.
It was fine that Director Beckett was going up, okay. I want to say thank you for the presentation through the chair. I asked that we find out what the master plan is. So it would be very beneficial for the directors to actually see the master plan. So, you know, plan out 5 years or whatever. And we'd like to see what it is that the network is proposed to be in the end. So rather than bit-pieced through grants like this and finding out a little bit of information at a time, it makes it much easier to support when you know that there's a plan and next steps. I'd like to know a couple things. If through staff, if there's any way to get any granting through the COVID relief or emergency grants. And also another question would be, have you considered the cell tower at Sprout Lake? It has a very good range by the looks of it, but it's owned by Rogers, so I'm not sure what the cost would be to locate on their tower. Thank you. Oh, also, I think that this, I'd like to see this move to emergency planning so that it's covered under that budget. I don't think it belongs in grant needs necessarily when it's for our emergency infrastructure. Thank you.
Yes, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted and Al, for joining us today and presenting, and thank you for all the work that you do in the Alberni Valley. Yes, to your point, Director Cote, I do agree that bringing this into the emergency plan budget is the way to go, and we have talked about that with the Radio Club, and I think we're all in agreement that that's a better way to fund this rather than through grant and aid. However, that is, we're not there yet. That's why the Aerosmith Radio Club did put in a grant and aid application this year. So we will work on that going forward. As far as grants, there is some grant funding through UBCM for EOC supplies and training. So I do have some plans specifically for training because it's been a while since our EOC staff and directors have had training. So I do have some funds that I want to pursue through that. But there may be some smaller funding requests that we could put in for some equipment to support the radio club. So yes.
So Director Beckett, did you have a comment other than, okay, you're on.
Good, thanks very much. Ted, Al, thank you for your presentation. I really support the initiative to modernize the ability to communicate in an emergency situation. I'm from Bamfield, and given the isolated nature of our community, communications is absolutely critical. Can you speak very quickly, briefly, to how this will assist, and do we have capabilities in Bamfield to attach ourselves to this new technology? Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead,
so Al, if it's okay. Thank you. The Bamfield is a challenge given the distance. We had and we have the Bamfield Fire Hall has a fully functional amateur radio station in place. So it's not like you don't have communications available. You do, not at this level, but the Bamfield Fire Hall has a direct connection to the EOC through our repeater site on Mount Arrowsmith for both voice and slow data. We'll call it that. It's not Wi-Fi or internet related speeds, but you do have the ability to speak and to send messages as it is. Given the optical line of sight sort of characteristics of microwave, connecting the mesh without other resources becomes a challenge, but it is something we have discussed. There has been some, we'll say, discussions between the native groups and other organizations out your way about some mountaintop sites that they'd like to develop. I think the Hawaiian or have been talking about something on a mountaintop with one of the local commercial people. And so it's possible if that comes about, we could piggyback on what they have to provide a connection to you directly. So yes, you know, we are aware of you out there. We know that we have to provide you with a connection back to the mother hen here in the valley, as it were, in the event of something, and we're very aware of it, and we'll work on that as we can. Something I'm sort of jumping to answer briefly a question from a couple of other folks. Occupying cellular industry infrastructure is incredibly complex. It's not something that the Amateur Radio Club can really do on their own, because most of the cellular folks don't want, they only want commercial paid something or others to have any access to their structures, because they're concerned with interference and all sorts of other things. So it's virtually impossible for us to get onto any cellular infrastructure, both Johnson Street and Faber Road, and between here and Bamfield for that matter. It's the other part of it in terms of funding, and we spoke with Heather about a 5-year plan, and I support that. The big problem for us at this point is we don't know who's going to use it. So we don't have the ability at this point to draw the ends to all of these links. And in order to draw a map that encompasses the whole thing, we have to get to the point where we're actually having discussions with all of those end users. So we know where we're going to plug a phone in and a computer and all of those things. So in terms of a map, which is certainly something we're working on, we're not there yet. So thank you.
Yeah, so I agree on the commercial cell towers. They're very expensive to locate on. The North Island 911 has like 10 or so towers that we actually own, and we have a couple of towers that we occupy on, and the taxes to have to be on a commercial site are about $4,000 a year, the taxes. And that's not even considering what the company is going to want, to go in their pocket. So it's complex and expensive, and the non-commercial ones are a much better avenue for this type of system. So has anybody else got anything? Al?
Yeah, a comment for Bob Beckett. Once the COVID thing calms down a bit, we will be going out to Bamfield to do some more training with the amateur operators out there.
Okay, well, I thank you folks for your time. As I said, if I'd stacked this meeting, I would have done it the other way around, but now you know all about economic development, Chamber of Commerce. I mean, what more could you want in a, Thursday morning? So we'll see you next time, and we'll get back to you on this. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on to request for decisions and bylaws. So the first one is request for decision with regards to our terms of reference. And I suspect that everybody's read through this up and down and backwards and understands the major yellow change that's in there. So I don't know if somebody would like to move a motion on this, which is in front of us. Just standard boilerplate, so. Okay, Director Beckett. Director Beckett moves, and
You want me
we
to
got a
read it,
second.
sir? No.
Seconder, Director Shannon. No, I don't think we need to read it. It's in front of us. We got it. So any discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, Sprout Lake Marine Patrol. So I don't know who wants to take this, suspect Jenny or Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a follow-up to the financial plan presentation. We had looked at Sprout Lake, and in the budget we had put it in as operating at a reduced capacity. We're trying to flesh out what that looks like, because we postponed it last year due to just a lot of the safety issues and the challenges with potential transfer. So, but recognizing that there is a strong will to move forward, we are doing our best to look at this. We think the next step really is to hire a consultant to come in and develop safe work procedures. We won't be able to operate the program without them. We do have a safety consultant who's worked on other things, and so we're looking at a quote for that. We're also waiting to hear back from the school district. There definitely is no capacity for in-school presentations, but there may or may not be interest in Zoom presentations. So we know that the program would be modified from its normal full operation, obviously. We're just not sure to what extent we're going to be able to operate it. One of the other factors is that we realize that there's going to be definitely more staff oversight this summer because of the additional risk and the additional safety procedures that have to be put in place. So unfortunately, still a lot of unknowns at this point. If the committee supports moving forward with investigating what this looks like, we can pass that resolution. We'll do a small adjustment of money from, instead of going to capital contribution, to consultant costs to cover the cost to flesh out what that looks like. Alternatively, we have provided an option to suspend the program for one more year, and then we would approach our grant, the grant for the school program, and see if we can get that deferred and work on the details of that.
Anybody else from the staff on this? Nope. Okay, Director Cote.
Thank you. Because I'm writing with my devices here, all my notes are on under you. So what I would like to bring up is that the value of this program and the ability for the Marine Patrol to be ambassadors of our community, and as a level of safety that they bring to the community. There's a lot more people that are venturing out into the rural areas, especially Sprout Lake, getting out on anything that floats. And the Marine Patrol are a wonderful asset that provide safety and eyes out there, eyes on the water. And that's important because a lot of people, if there's nobody watching, even if they're just positioned at the boat launch, if there's nobody looking, then there's nobody that is overseeing the safety of people out there. There's a lot of excess drinking, drugs, late night boating. If they see someone that at the boat launch when they leave, they don't know that there isn't somebody there when they come back. I've heard already from community members that are telling me to make sure that I'm pushing to make sure that Marine Patrol is happening again this year. They see the value in it, and this isn't just coming from me. This is coming from community members. So they're really wanting to make sure that the Marine Patrol runs. I see that we have other services that have employees that are out in the communities. And I'm sure that they have protocols. I know that the city has workers that work out in the community, and I'm sure that they could help us, or we could ask, how they've trained people and what kind of safeguards they have in place, so that we can open this up. Students are one of the hardest hit demographics for employment. I really want to make sure that we understand that these are 4 important jobs. The lengths that we've gone to in the past to recognizing the right candidates had a lot of thought behind it. It was trying to help out these students in their careers, so they had some experience. We've had foresters and biology people that they actually gain knowledge from the experience that they've had through this program to bring forward into their career. So I'm so supportive of having the Marine Patrol go this year. Whether it looks a little different, that will be brought forward by staff. But just want to say I full-heartedly support this. Thanks.
Okay, Director Minions is waving around there.
Just can't tell if you see me.
Yeah, I know. It's we need some kind of icon that says, "Yeah, I got you."
I know. Thank you. I just wanted to speak really strongly in support of getting this program back up and running for this summer. I very much echo Director Cote's comments around the importance of it. And I know that last year we had some challenges and there was a lot going on last year. So, maybe this wasn't at the top of the priority list to put our time and effort into figuring out a solution for. But I think we have the luxury this year of kind of knowing where we're at with COVID and where we're likely to be, and being able to put systems in place ahead of time to make sure that we can operate this program. So I'm fully in support of making sure this program does go this year. Thank you.
So the only caution that I would put in there is this group that we're dealing with is the group that is the highest transfer rate of COVID at the moment. And they're also the last ones that are going to be vaccinated. So I really get where Jenny's coming from with regards to looking at consultation to have an environment that's going to provide safety for them in the COVID fashion. There's also other areas of safety, just like the Chamber of Commerce was talking about. We have to make sure that we're providing a workplace that is respective of the challenges, and I wouldn't want to jump into this without a plan that reflects that. So I mean, I would support looking at consultants with regards to the safety. And the problem I still have with this file is the strategic funding aspect of it. And I really do believe that we've charged the taxpayer for something that they have not received, and that they need tax relief if we apply it. And the taxpayer of tomorrow is a different person than the taxpayer of today and yesterday. So I really think that we need to respect that. But Jenny, have you got any comment with regards to that further?
Actually, if Terry's still on the line, as in regards to financing,
Yeah, so it's definitely an option. I just, I personally don't recommend when we drop it significantly, if we know it's going to rebound for sure the following year. Do we want to take it down a little bit this year to give a little bit of a break, say 10,000 or something? I definitely be open to that, but I don't, and we would do that by reducing the amount we're contributing into the capital fund. But I don't recommend us doing the full amount of the surplus from the prior year, because it is going to create what will look like a very large increase in 2022, which I feel like is hard to explain from a presentation standpoint, but completely up to the directors as to what you would like to do with that.
So the problem with putting in the capital fund, the only capital investments of this particular service is a boat, you know, so like we already kind of are heading towards over,
yeah,
like we're there, you know, as far as the value of a boat. There's certainly the value of a boat that's used for a 3-month service, so annually, and then
sure. So
for the rest of the year. So go ahead.
If I could just speak to that in terms of the 5-year plan, once we lose the grant funding, which right now we have it for this year and next year, but once that is done, it is very challenging for us to run this service under the cap. It's actually quite tight when you add all of the staff time in. And so that would just give us the ability to put zero contribution to capital into it at that point. There is some big costs coming up to the boat. My understanding is the pontoons are going to need to be replaced within the next year or two, depending on how they've lasted, being in storage for over a year now. And then the other aspect of it is I also understand there might need to be a new motor, and we're trying our best to be watching for something secondhand that might fit our needs, but we still haven't bought the motor. The motor has been in the budget for the last couple of years, but we haven't found anything at a price range that we were willing to pay for it. So we've working with the local suppliers trying to find something secondhand to meet our needs. So I just think it would be a good buffer for that boat. We've been very lucky in the past to get it very cheaply from, I think they came from Search and Rescue, but we just don't know for sure that will happen in the future. So having that reserve gives us that ability.
Yeah, the motors we should be looking at for these things are the ones that come back from the resorts. They have them on a lease program for 2 years, and they come back to the distributor after that, and they're really quite economical. And I expect that our boat dealers would be thrilled to have it on something like our vessel. So we've got Director Shannon and then a waving Director Cote.
Thank you. I've been playing around with this a lot in my head, because I struggle with, I mean, for what our budget is for this, for $10,000 for a consultant fee for safety protocols, what I'm reading on page 14. I mean, to me, that's quite a bit of money out of a operating budget of, now of course I can't find it, but to me it's quite a substantial amount. And I worry about the amount of money running this that we're spending on consultants and staff time versus the value of what we're actually getting on the lake in the summer, because we still don't really know exactly what that capacity is going to be. So just to keep that again. Well, no, because we don't know necessarily what provincially where we are with COVID and everything.
Mr. Holmes in front of Director Cote.
Mr. Chair, we share that concern. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to go through the work procedures, because it really does, it really is a matter of breaking down, and I think you'll recall from the prior year's report, we broke down the individual pieces of the services, be it the life jacket program, et cetera. We don't really have the capacity to take the time to break it down right now. We're spending a lot of time trying to recruit the empty positions that we've got, and where, our in-office program is all established, and it's, for office work, it's all pretty easy. The conversation that the chair has raised about the demographic, the work environment, et cetera, it's really, really important to get this right. And we had a visit from WorkSafe very recently, went through a questionnaire, they reviewed all of our processes, et cetera. They're watching these things very, very carefully. We did very, very well, fortunately. But at the same time, we've got to get this right, first of all, for the safety of the public and our employees, and then secondly, because of course of the requirements under WorkSafe. But we just don't have the capacity, unfortunately. We don't. Hopefully, we wouldn't spend the entire $10,000 that we're suggesting. That is a number a little bit out of the air. And as Jenny mentions, we're waiting to hear back from the company that we've been using for very similar work in other areas.
So just to add to that, I know of a local business that was negligent in protection of their staff with regards to COVID, and several of their staff members had to be off work for a 14-day period. And so the financial responsibility there becomes the companies or their employers. And so risk management is a big part of this, as well as just simple protection of the employee, which is far more important than the risk management part itself. But Director Cote?
Thank you. It sounds to me like it's a staff do not want to take this on, which I can understand, due to lack of personnel that are in the office at this time. But this is an important service that's provided to the community. It actually went to referendum. The community passed it. They wanted to see this service. And I think it's our duty to make sure that we can provide this. As far as the taxes go, it's not the budget that was there. Things roll over. You don't lose that money. It's not spent. It's there. The taxation is just the increases from that have been used in the previous year, as I understand it. I think that right now we should be looking at synergies with the city of Port Alberni on issues like this, where we could do training together. And as far as the boat and motor go, I'd really like to see a asset management strategy on the Marine Patrol as far as the boat and motor, because it seems to me it wasn't that long ago that we bought a motor. So I'd like to know what the length of a lifespan of a boat and motor is. And in that asset plan, I'd really like to also see how we're working with BC Parks at that location. Marine Patrol is very important, and I think that it should not be overlooked. I understand that we need to provide training for these students, but I don't see this as a stop to running this program. Children are going to school, students are going to school. We can do screening and make sure that there's understanding that any employees need to follow rules with masking and protection, and that they've had training in the past regarding being a non-enforcement authority out there. So they know to step back if there's an issue. So I am hoping that the board will actually support this going forward. Thank you.
So one of the big challenges with this particular service is that we have no control, zero control of who hits that boat ramp or who is using a temporary lodging facility on Sprout Lake, or who is coming to their cabin that just came from Texas. We haven't any control on that. So our responsibility to protect our employees is paramount in my mind. We have a motion suggestion here that is in front of us. I don't know if anybody wants to move that at this point. Otherwise, I'm not really quite sure what we do from here. Yes, Director Minions.
Thank you. I will move the motion as written.
Okay, thank you very much. Have we got a seconder on that? Director Paulson?
Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll just comment,
Sure.
if that's okay, that I get the challenges with offering this service, and I think we do have to absolutely put our employee and all people's safety at the forefront when we're making these decisions. So although I think the amount that's been talked about is a bit high, I think if we need a consultant to come in and help us figure out how to make this program work, then for me, that's a priority. I think there is a way to make just about any service work, even in COVID. But it's just about figuring out that plan, and it's about the board prioritizing it. So for me, this is a priority, and if this is the path that staff recommends taking to get there, then I'm certainly supportive of it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Director Shannon.
Thank you. A question for Jenny. Are we going to hear back what the quote is from the consultant once staff move forward?
I think if you guys pass this resolution, the intent would be to take it to the board and start working with the consultant, because I agree. I don't know what the price is going to be. $10,000 was a healthy amount so that we can adjust the financial plan portion of the aspect. But then also, I think it's really important that we start working on that sooner than later so that we know what the program is going to look like, which actually requires them to go through and start doing the assessment of all of the tasks. And so, because there's two components, one is the price for the consultant, but then also I'd like to be able to report back on what the program will look like in a safe manner. So my expectation would be to adjust the financial plan as suggested, but then report back with the results from the consultant that says this is what we can do safely and how we're planning to do it for the summer.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, thanks for that. Next, this shouldn't take more than an hour and a half. So, replacement of the Aquatic Center and Fitness Center. And so I don't know who wants to take this. Why is staff hall heading in the opposite direction here?
Probably just good sense, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay.
Just very, very briefly, there's been 2 facilitated sessions with community leaders, many of whom are elected leaders in the Valley. The consensus that the consultant documented in the second one was really to continue on the conversation with the community. That needs to be done in an informed way. And in our view, that would give the elected leaders an indication of what level of support there was for what type of amenity, if at all. I think one of the conversation options would, of course, need to be not having a pool. I think each of us has our own predictions to whether or not that would be acceptable to members of the Alberni Valley or not. But I think those options need to be out there as part of all the discussions. The pool, as provided a very good service life, but it is at the end of that service life. And so despite what a busy year it is, and the costs associated with getting this good information and engaging the public, staff think that it's important to continue the conversations so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where there's a facility that's no longer fixable at an economic cost and therefore can't provide aquatic service to the public, and we still haven't figured out sort of what the next steps might be. And so really, in our view, the point is to get this in the hands of the community for a good conversation. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Director Cote.
Thank you. So I am in the opinion that, yes, we need to move on with this, but I am not excited about converted value cost. So I think that this should be put to the directors as to either per capita or similar to the way that we've worked on economic development, where we each put in so much money from each area. Thank you.
So I'd like to comment on this as far as Beaver Creek is concerned. So the position, and I've talked to several of people within our regional district from all of the areas of the regional district with regards to this, to the pool and the move to make it into a regional district service. What I've found is that there is general support for the pool. There is general support for funding the operations, the daily operations of the pool. There is zero support for making it into a regional district service. So while I understand that this is part of an ongoing discussion and trying to understand what people really want, I mean, our other option is to put this to a referendum, just simply the part about making it into a service. And then if that doesn't float, then we go back to where we were, where we were with regards to the format that we have at the present day. So, I mean, as far as Beaver Creek is concerned, like, I'm committed to funding the pool through referendum. And on a format that we did for the arena, we got support for that, and it got built, and it's equitable in the amount that was invested by each of the areas of the Alberni Valley. So, I mean, really, all the question really is what formula is there, or should there be, with regards to support of the ongoing cost? And in my mind, the ongoing cost should be generated by user fees and then supported by taxpayers after that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I see Mr. Holmes, Director Minions, Director Wagner, Director Polson. All the other ones are black down here, so I can see them. So, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Chair, just wanted to clarify, the only way that a service could be created is through a public process, and the amounts that we'd be talking about, it would have to be a referendum. There's no other process that would authorize this. The second thing is, just want to be clarified from staff's point of view as well. This is really a decision of the directors, however it goes forward. But from staff's point of view, when we talk about creating a service, it is really just for governing and funding. It's not for the operation. The operations will look just like it is now. It's a question of who owns the financial and operations risk. If the rural directors area is a fixed amount, then all of the risk belongs to the city of Port Alberni, and it's a question amongst the directors as to whether or not that's acceptable or not. And if it's created a service for funding and for setting sort of broad policies, not at the operational level, but broader, like operating hours and funding levels, et cetera, and how it's done that way. Then the financial risk is shared through a predetermined formula that would be established through a conversation, be that by population or some combination, or arbitrary percentages that that the directors could visit every 5 to 10 years or something like that. So it's really a blank page as to how that's established, but from staff's point of view, in no scenario do we think of the service as anything other than funding and governing. The operations will stay with the city in our view. Thank you.
Okay, Director Minions, I got everybody, so I'm going to be
everyone on the list. Thank you. I just wanted to, I wanted to clarify from my perspective that the ask today is not for us to determine how much each of our areas are going to pay, but it's for us to get the information and get the input from the public that we need in order to really have these conversations in a meaningful way. So, you know, I think that we all recognize the value of the pool. And we probably still have differing opinions on who should pay what and how much and who's responsible. And I think that those conversations are going to take a lot of time to have and to hash out and to get to a point where we all find something that we feel is equitable. That could be what we're doing now. It could be something very different, or it could be a mix in between. But I think what we're missing right now is having the context of what we're even looking at and giving our residents from each of our areas an opportunity to come out and have their input. So I am very supportive of taking this step because I feel like we're at a bit of a standstill where we can't really have conversations in a meaningful way until we get the information that we need. And that is what this request is about. So I would ask the directors to support this so that we can continue moving forward and not, you know, we really just spent over a year stalled completely. And yes, it's COVID, but the community doesn't want to wait forever and the pool won't last forever. So I think this is of the utmost importance, and I would very much like us to continue moving forward so that we can start to populate some of the answers to the questions we have. Thank you.
okay. Director Bodner with Director Cote after.
Yes, I feel very strongly that this go to a referendum, but we really need to have the some more input from the people that are going to be using it. And in that referendum, I think we should have as much information as possible regarding costs, because they are going to want to know. So thank you.
Yeah, there really is no option but to go to referendum in this. So it you know what we're talking about here is having the information, or having the sense of who wants to participate and how before we go to referendum. So Director Cote.
Thank you. So through the chair, I agree with everything that Director Minions has just said. I think that this is part of the process. I think that we need to do it. I think that we need to contribute to it. My hold off here is just the way that it's being allocated to asking the different areas for money. I don't like converted values on services like this. I think it should be apportioned either population or like we do the economic development. And I would definitely support that, this ask, if it's done that way. Thank you. Could Terry please give us a different breakdown if possible?
We could provide that next meeting. I'm actually just frantically looking through the legislation because I'm not sure if we can do that in a proposed service. We definitely can when we go to establish the service, but the rules when you're proposing a service are slightly different. And I feel like I'm remembering that we need to do it based on land and improvements in the feasibility stage, which this program or this service would be. Once we go to set it up and we take it to referendum, we definitely can set the apportionment method at that time. But I will have to get back to you on whether we can do that at this point. And I see Mr. Holmes also has something to add to that.
So Mr. Holmes messes up my list.
I am sorry for upsetting the list. I just wanted to, in agreeing but supplementing what Terry has said, the so it's the if we're taxing in 2021 for the purposes of doing feasibility work and trying to garner the information to support a community conversation. I think that Terry's quite right about what she has said. The question is then, can that be supplemented by monies coming from others? So I'm just thinking about the option B considered. Could it be a combination of money raised by apportionment, but the city supplemented as well? So that is just thinking of ways to comply with the legislation, but to achieve the outcome that is important to one or more of the directors with respect to not using converted land of improvements only. Thank you.
So are you talking about the $3.5 million or something? Just kidding. Okay. Now we have Dr. Shannon, I think.
Sure, I'll go. Thank you. I'll echo what Director Minion said, that, I mean, we need to get some more information in front of us before we get farther down conversations, however they may look. My question is if we're looking at feasibility right now and doing this study of what a plan might look like with limitations of COVID and getting information and feedback from constituents, because like I'm even noticing even with budget that we're inviting people to virtual meetings. We've got stuff online or even in the paper, and we're not getting much response. So that would be, I guess, my question and my concern with this right now. Thank you.
Okay, Director Paulson.
Once again, just echoing what Mayor Minion's mentioned. The thing has been stalled out for over a year. I just want to point out, and I don't know how many of the directors have actually read the previous study. The previous study is probably around 10 years old. So public consultation at that point in time was done. So we're talking about $100,000 for a feasibility study, and a lot of that study is already done. It's a tool in our toolbox. A consultant could probably take that study and take the base information and add to it. There's a lot of questions that we're talking about here today that I think would come out of that feasibility study. And some of that would be taxation and funding models. But my opinion is what we need to do is we need to update that previous study. There's 5 different options for how that pool could look in that study. I think that a consultant could come back with 2 options with concept designs and costs attached. And until we get the costs attached, then our whole discussion about what it's going to cost each area is moot until we know what the cost is. But you know, the question today is moving forward. I think updating the existing feasibility study, and I'm sure there's many things that would apply to 2021 that weren't applicable in 2012 when this was done. But I think that we need to narrow it down. Like I say, there's 5 options in that study. I don't know how many people have read that study right through. It's quite large and lengthy. But we need to narrow it down to a couple of options that we can either take to referendum or narrow it down to 1. Just, I hate to keep going on, but those 5 options went everywhere from a renovation of the current site, renovation and expansion, to a standalone new building and new pool. There is federal funding available. Prince George is just opening their brand new pool this week. They received $10 million in federal granting. Parksville is looking at building a new pool. I think that they need to come up with a site before their grant funding comes through. Vanderhoof has just opened a new pool. So there's many examples in British Columbia right now of replacing this kind of infrastructure that we can take, we can steal information from, if you will. But we need to move forward, gang. Like it's just kind of sitting stagnant. It's an investment in our community. I talk about social equity, family gathering areas, drown-proofing our kids. There's many other things that have to be considered here, but we're talking about stuff that we don't have answers for until we get this thing narrowed down. And I think that's where the consultant and the feasibility comes in. Thanks for indulging me again.
So we've got Director Cote last here.
Thank you. Through the chair, all due respect to Director Paulson, that study is 10 years old. I was a part of it, or however old it was. It's been looked at a few times, and I have participated, and I am very well aware of the study that's on the shelf. I think that it's stale. I don't think there was enough participation from the rural areas. It was a city study, and we want to include all of the rural areas. We're going to have to start back at the beginning. There might be new things that have been identified. There's a lot of issues in our communities these days regarding homelessness, and the demographics are changed. We'd really like to entice younger families to move to our area, and having facilities of this type are very important to people that are looking for a new location, and for seniors, and for so many other reasons. So I definitely support us taking another look and including the community. Respect also to Director McNabb. He has one voice. I've talked to a lot of people also, but I don't say that I know what everybody's is going to be saying about the pool and aquatic center. So, you know, the sky's the limit on this, and maybe the community wants the Cadillac, or maybe they want the Volkswagen. We need to find out from them, not from the board sitting around doing a debate about, you know, what we can do. We can help out with what we can afford. We can help out with the policies. We can help out with how we're going to fund this and who's going to do what. And I think that that's what this study is going to help us along with. So if we have to go by converted values, then we have to, but I'd really like to see a different way. Thank you.
Director Minions.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to echo a lot of the comments that were just made by Director Cote. And while I do think there's some valuable information that could be used as somewhat of a starting point for the different, you know, types of pool and that type of thing, I think the really important key here is how much our demographic has shifted over the last 10 years. We really can't start from where we were at with consultation and things like that. So, and I think it's important to recognize as well that that was very much a city process. And if we're asking for the regional district, regional areas to be our partners on this and for us to all work together, it needs to be a regional district-led process and moving forward. So I think our demographics have shifted, and it's important that we reach out and, you know, try to engage with everyone about whether this is an importance or not. And again, I mean, I think we need to talk about whether, what kind of pool do we want, but also, do the taxpayers want to pay for a pool at this point? We have to be open to hearing any outcome, even if it's not what we personally want. And then I just wanted to comment really briefly on Director Shannon's comment, because I think that's a really valid concern. You know, is this the right time to move forward with this or not? And although COVID absolutely brings some challenges, we've actually been finding with some of our city processes, not budget, because budget traditionally gets very little interest, unfortunately. But with some of our other processes we've been going through with planning activities, we've actually been running some really effective online sessions, and we're finding that we're getting engagement from people in our community, and I would say sectors of our community that that don't often engage. So, you know, because we're doing it online, whether by Zoom or survey or, you know, a variety of things, we're actually reaching people that I think we wouldn't otherwise. So I don't think we can discount that. We're certainly missing some people as well, and there's ways to combat that. But I from what I've seen, our last few processes we've gone through, it's actually been really reassuring to me because we're getting higher numbers than we often do, as long as it's something that is of interest to people. And as we know, the pool is of interest to people. So I hope that helps somewhat, because I definitely had that concern as well. And what I've seen has been the opposite. Oh, and I would love to make the motion that's written here if that's appropriate.
Sure. Wherever that is.
Thank you. I will move that the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Service Committee recommend the inclusion of $100,000 for the feasibility of an Alberni Valley Aquatic Center proposed service in the draft 2021 to 2025 financial plan for consideration of Board of Directors.
Seconder?
And from what
Okay.
we will get more information on how the apportionment will be, but I think it's still appropriate to make the motion as written.
Exactly. So does that need to be part of the motion?
Mr. Chair, as Ms. Fong has said earlier on, we can bring some options to the March 10th meeting.
Okay. So the only portion of this that I mean, I have no problem with the aquatic center and the study and yada, yada, yada. The only portion I have a problem with is the proposed service bit of this. I expect that will be covered in the study and with communication to everybody. And one of the cautions that really comes into it for me is exactly what's just happened with the covert start funds. You know, the provincial government assumes that the municipalities are having the services that needed to be supported. They also assume that the regional districts do not have them. And, you know, and I really don't have a problem with the municipality getting the money to support the services. But if this ball rolls this way again, are we going to be in that situation where the rural areas as well as the municipality are going to be stuck with not having the money to support something that's a sort of out of round service? Dr. Minions.
Thank you. I think that is a fantastic point, because I mean, we got significantly more money than the regional district did, and that's because, you know, they are making an assumption that we have significantly more losses, and we do. But you're right. If this was a regional district service, then you know, that would be inequitable, because the bulk of our losses are in parks and recreation, and a lot of that is at the pool at this point. So we're being well covered for that right now. But absolutely, I think that this is an important piece to bring to our conversations, because I see that this as something that could be worked out for future scenarios. If there was, I mean, hopefully not an exact situation like this, but if there is funding like this that comes, you know, where municipalities are getting a significantly higher amount, or kind of based on the expectation that we have higher losses or costs or something like that, there's got to be a way that we can work into an agreement for moving forward how that would be represented. I think that COVID has given us a unique perspective on a lot of things that we may not have otherwise really been able to think about. So I see this again as something we can work out. So yeah, thanks for bringing it forward.
Okay, unless anybody's got anything else of major importance, all in favor of this motion? Opposed? Is that an opposed, Director Budner? No, a late at 4. Okay. All right. So now what are we moving on to? Something major interest here. Oh, Alberni Valley Regional Airport. So who wants to be the pilot of this?
I'll start from the looks on Jenny's face. So this was a parking lot item from the February 17th Committee of the Whole. My understanding, or staff's understanding, was that you just would like to have a further discussion regarding the allocation of wages to this service. So we just took the section from our January 13th meeting that kind of outlined all the things that we need to do to support the airport service, and have provided them for information, and are happy to answer questions of the directors.
just so how does this define the wages? Am I missing a page or something? Oh, maybe there. Okay. Sorry, could you just
So we
quickly break down that wage component of it? So my thanks.
So we haven't provided like percentage, like each staff person and who percentages what, where, that sort of thing. We've just provided the list of duties, and we basically take, in terms of our wage allocation in general, we take the work plan for the year, we take the existing operations, and we, from an individual staff basis, we allocate the percentages across the services for absolutely every staff member. And then we kind of compile it together to make sure that it seems to make sense with the amount of work that we have on the plate. It's a little bit complicated this year as we're bringing on some additional resources to try to kind of figure out where we are putting those, and like making sure that the services that are needing those extra assistance are the services that are getting the extra time. So it was a very large process this year, and as I would be happy to bring back the percentages, we don't usually get into that sort of nitty gritty at the board level, because it can fluctuate during the year as we're having to hand something to a different person within the organization based on what pops up.
So there's basically the answer to my question, is these are not direct employee costs, but staff costs.
I'm not sure I get your question. They're staff costs. Yes, they're staff time as we anticipate.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe I can add just a little bit there. So we have the airport manager, a full-time airport maintenance person, a part-time airport maintenance support person. We also have our environmental services coordinator who provides support for a lot of the leases and administration side of things, and a lot of land use issues at the Alberni Valley Regional Airport. So we also have our lands and resource coordinator who often provides a lot of support in that service, as well as my position provides support in that service. So a lot of different staff work on this service, but
Okay.
The majority of it is really on the ground work with the airport staff.
So that was the kind of definition I was looking for, but it wasn't in there. Thanks. Okay, motion to receive that report unless somebody's got something they want to fly across there.
Motion to receive.
And seconded by Mr. Beckett, Director Beckett. Okay, moving on. Custom transit. Who's gonna jump into this both feet?
Terry and I'll just play tennis here. So with the AV Custom Transit, again, this one, there was a few questions. So I did go back and do some investigation about the hours. What we had done is we did a service expansion in 2019 for the Custom Transit. And immediately what we saw is we did see about 1,200 rides a month at the end of 2019, which is excellent. So that was, I understand that the service was overprescribed, and we basically brought up the service hours to meet that demand. COVID had a serious impact on that. So March dropped to 687. April, we saw 109 rides, and it has rebounded a little bit, but it's floating around 600 rides per month. A lot of that is because the programs that are available have been closed down in a lot of cases. A lot of people are choosing not to use transit or go out, to have things brought home, to minimize travel at all possible. But it is still a very essential service for going to medical appointments and other essential things. With the costs on this, the other thing was that the reason we saw such a big drop in costs in 2020 was that we had a holiday on our lease fees for half the year. So that's a big price that we pay to BC Transit, which pays for the amortization of the buses. And we will not be seeing that in 2021. And the COVID restart funding that transit systems across BC have received, basically the chunk that we got for Custom Transit is to last us for the next 24 months. So I really don't anticipate seeing any other benefits coming to this service. We don't anticipate any other, so our operational costs will be back to normal, even though we'll have reduced rides, because we just have less people on a bus. And so we still need to pay for all of the fixed costs to operate the transit system. And then the other aspect of this is that we're looking to establish a stabilization reserve, which Terry's been speaking to, and I strongly support, again, for the same reason that, especially in this service, if we implement a stabilization reserve, then we don't have to have a large tax increase in 2022. And I feel, especially with this being such an essential service, it is in our best interest to level off the pricing for this into the long run if we can.
So this one is, I give an example here. The day programs at Fur Park and Echo are zero, like nothing. Those people that would normally take custom transit for that purpose are simply not taking it. You may use custom transit for doctor's appointments or hospital appointments, but to do a lot of the things that they would normally do in the community, going bowling, other things like that, it just isn't happening. So I don't know really what they're doing with the buses, quite frankly. I suspect they're sitting at the yard. So it's going to be this way. Director Paulson can probably jump in there because he knows about as much about this as I do, and Director Cote. It's going to be late 2021 before any of these services bounce back. And so we're going to be looking at service levels the same for 2021, virtually as we did it'll work out almost identical to what happened in 2020 because of the months that are involved. So, I understand the idea with regards to this stabilization, but I think it's projected too far. And I think we need to look at gearing it back so that it is over the next 24 months, not over the next 5 years. So we got a massive hands flowing in here. I think it was Director Cote and Director Paulson.
I'd actually like to hear what Ms. Bruin has to say first.
Oh, okay.
And I just wanted to provide clarity, and I apologize if I wasn't clear. So the rides have dropped by about half, which is still 600 out of the available, or average 1,200. Now, the reason being is that we used to combine rides as effectively as possible. So you would put multiple people on the handy dart. And so we do still have to pay for the driver, the buses, etc. BC Transit provides us the budget that we will be paying. And the only reason we saw a reduction is that they actually gave us a lease fee waiver, which we will not be seeing in 2021. So transit, because we're mostly a funding mechanism, especially with custom transit, and it's run by BC Transit, we pay the bills that we receive based on this. So I think what's put in the budget as far as expenses is fixed. And we will see that. And I think just wanted to provide that as extra clarity.
Okay, Director Cote and Director Paulson.
Thank you. So I see this as actually, yes, I think that the ridership is probably just cut in half. I think that the bus, even if it's sitting there, we're still paying for the bus, we're still paying for the driver, just maybe not as much fuel. And we aren't getting any of the costs returned from ridership. So you have to take that also into consideration, even though it's a low amount. But I think that we need to receive this report.
Director Paulson.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the chair's thoughts. We don't have a crystal ball on kind of where this service will rebound to in 2021, keeping in mind that in general terms, the ridership is our most vulnerable population with regards to COVID. So I think they're going to be very, very cautious with regards to opening up new services like the bathing program and day services those sorts of things. Doctor's appointments and stuff will go on, and there will be some ridership. But once again, I just really support this program, and it's an essential service as far as I'm concerned. And Director McNabb, you fought hard and long to extend this service out. So I want to make sure that we don't lose what you fought for and then not gain it back again, because there was some past discussion about hours of operation and getting people to and from doctor's appointments and stuff like that. But I think 2021, for it to return to its previous level probably isn't going to happen this year. Although that population is also the first population that's receiving vaccinations too. So they might become the least vulnerable here over the next little while, but it's hard without a crystal ball.
So could we please have staff requisition a crystal ball? Okay, so I think I had a soft motion to receive this report. Does anybody want to second that? Is there any more discussion on this? Is that a discussion, Director Shannon?
Second and discussion. I was just gonna say that looking at the report, I do like the option of number 3 that staff have put forward, where if we look at using the stabilization, because I understand how that will be long-term beneficial where we're not seeing spikes. I mean, because I feel like if we're spiking a lot, although I understand it's like we didn't spend it, give them a break. I feel like 2022 could be a big year with elections and things like that. But the option of like doing some decreases this year where we can and keeping that stabilization in, and then maybe and then not maybe the 5% decrease the next year to slowly try and build that back up, because I mean, we are looking out 5 years as the financial plan needs to, but maybe that just gives us the opportunity to mitigate some of that while offering a little bit of a break with these reserves in these areas. Because I mean, I find it hard. I mean, everybody's struggling with this process, but it is hard when we're not watching the numbers like we normally would. As we're making decisions, how it's affecting the bottom line for each area and what we're looking at for tax requisition. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Are you wanting feedback, Director McNabb?
I'm not sure if Director Shannon's wanting feedback.
No, I don't need feedback. I'm just saying I like option 3, where we're looking at offering a little bit of a decrease, but still doing a requisition, so we're not just like scrambling next year where we have such a steep incline. A little bit of both worlds, I guess. Thank you.
So that could be the motion. That was the soft motion that was put forward before. I agree. I think that's the best option. Thanks.
Okay, not quite sure what we do with that, but somebody direct me. We've got a motion to receive, and now we got a motion to accept a part of this.
Can I just make a comment here? I don't mind when we're coming back to March 10th when things are in front of us. If we talk about it then, staff jump in if that's more of a pain than not. I know we're just receiving this for information, but that was just my thoughts on, I mean, even looking at the 3 areas where we're looking at, there could be a stabilization reserve of doing the slight decrease and then changing it for 2022-23. But I will move that we receive the report for information.
So that's kind of my thought about this presentation for the whole day is, we'll digest it and the conversation and come back and surprise Terry at the next meeting.
Yes, staff preference would be no surprises.
Yeah, so the best route would be for us to input some of this today, but it's a long meeting, and I think we may be better off to maybe give her a heads up where we're going later on in the week and go from there. So we have a motion to receive this
Okay.
report with great interest. What? Yes, Director Fong.
So just so we are clear about what this next step is, I'm not planning on bringing these back in these separate components. We will be bringing back the entire financial plan at that March 10th board meeting. We also have a few other parking lot issues such as parks that we haven't quite got to yet. But once we've brought a discussion such as the AVRA or this here, we're not planning on bringing it back as a separate item. So I fear that if we don't make these, or if you don't make these resolutions now, that it may get lost in the shuffle of the main financial plan. But I'm definitely open to you guys waiting if you're still kind of trying to decide. That's completely fine. Or if you just want to make a motion that we bring this back as a separate discussion item to the March 10th COW, that would be good as well. But I don't want to lose track of what you guys are wanting to make adjustments to.
So I think that that's probably what we could do is after the motion to receive this, we make a motion to reconsider the strategic, whatever it's called, requisition. So
yeah, we can just to bring back AV custom transit would be great.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, the thought there was to make a similar adjustment to the other ones that are involved, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that what you were talking about, Director Shannon? So maybe let's get this out of our hair and then we'll go from there. So the motion to receive this report, we have a mover and a seconder for that. All in favor? Okay, and then Director Shannon or Director Cote, whichever. Director Shannon, I think has a thought there.
Yeah, and you're correct, Director McNabb. I was thinking like the three areas that staff proposed to do the rate stabilization was EA and MIN, correct? This transit and West Coast Transit?
West Coast Transit, yeah.
Yeah, so my thought was kind of to look at all three with the 5% reduction, keeping the rate stabilization, and then looking, and then maybe that's even just to reevaluate in 2023 what that reduction is with that stabilization.
So there was also Sprout Lake Marine Patrol too, I believe, covered by this.
Sprout Lake Marine Patrol is just putting the surplus into the capital reserve, not into a rate stabilization reserve. It was going to be, the staff recommendation was to put the money in for future boat expenditures. But now with the motion that you guys made earlier today, some of that will be used for consultant time in 2021. Sorry, I'm losing track of what year we're in.
Okay, me too. So is that a motion, Director Shannon? Okay, so we got a seconder for that? Director Cote, I think. Okay, anything else on that? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Terry, you got your hand up. Okay, now what? That's the end of the page. So, not the end of the page? Is there more? The end of this one. We don't have anything else. I've got to go way back to the beginning on this dumb thing. So that's it for the agenda, isn't it?
Mr.
No,
Chair,
there's a
Bamfield
verbal.
Seaweed, which is a verbal, so there's no more reports. You're quite correct. So it's just
okay. Sorry.
And if I may suggest that perhaps Director Beckett could summarize the conversations that have sort of led to this, and then Mike and I would sort of like to maybe suggest some ways forward and some of the next steps that could be talked about or considered, if that's acceptable.
Mr. Chair, should I go ahead?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to get that. I'm using my old iPad for this agenda and it just blew up in my face. So go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll summarize. I should be less than 45 minutes.
Oh, good.
When I started a contract position with the Marine Science Center over 3 years ago, that was the first time as a seasonal resident in Bamfield that I learned about the Hawaiian Bamfield Marine Sciences Center sewage program, and the fact that the community of Bamfield was not actively engaged in conversations, that they had been offered an opportunity to consider participating in the project, but based on some initial costs that were provided the community said they weren't interested. However, 3 years ago, I'm still wondering why we weren't pursuing it, given the environmental impact and the reality of future opportunities. Fast forward to me becoming a member of the ACRD, I still continue to wonder, knowing that the project was going ahead, why we weren't having conversations. And a year ago, the Hawaii Business Group, I met with them on 2 occasions in Port Alberni, and they were very anxious that we participate as a community in the sewage system. And again, even a year ago, my concern was, I get it that the residents are not going to be interested in perhaps outlying a fair amount of money if they've got a good working septic system. And I conveyed to the Hawaii Nation that, what's the incentive to join up? Although I was supportive of looking at initiatives that would allow us to have some form of partnership. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Hawaii had reached out to me again. I'm coming to a conclusion here. About 3 weeks ago, the Hawaii Nation came to me again and said, we're now starting to get a number of inquiries from the Bamfield community, folks that are looking to subdivide. Ever since the announcement of the road, there's been considerable interest in Bamfield. Properties are selling. Folks are now looking at subdividing, as I said, and there's a renewed interest in perhaps participating in the project. So I reached out to Douglas and I said, Douglas, we need to have a conversation about this. I would encourage you to help me by facilitating a meeting with the ACRD and some of your staff to talk about sewage management. We did that a week ago, and it was an excellent meeting, and I think that brings you up to speed, and I'd like to turn it over to Douglas, please.
So the conversation, and so of course there's a capital installation going of a sewage treatment plant in Bamfield. That is as Director Beckett has said, a partnership of Hawaii First Nation, the Bamfield Marine Science Center, and School District 70, and right now it isn't. It's designed to receive actually a lot more material than what that will generate. In fact, there's probably enough capacity for the current community east and west, and then some. So the question then becomes, then if that's the case, then how does that occur? So there's a lots of ways that can go forward, and just thinking about not the technical pipes and lift stations and things like that for the moment, from just really a governance and administration point of view. We could be everything as the regional district, anything from just a cheerleader and support and suasion with senior levels of government for grant funding, much like we were for the road project. Or we could, with the approval of the electorate, take on the whole project, including the existing infrastructure, potentially subject to the granting, whatever granting has been applied to this thing, and make, if that, as long as it didn't violate that. We could do sort of the Nanaimo possibility, where the Nanaimo Regional District owns and operates the treatment facility, and in the case of Nanaimo City owns and operates the collection system, and then contributes to the regional district based on flows to the processing plant. And so, and I imagine there's a number of, there's quite a few, I can think of a 2 or 3 more operation pieces through there. The regional district has in its possession a study that was done, and Mike could be able to speak better about this than I would, but around 2012 or 2014, something like that, that is really documented sort of the background behind the fact that it's not safe for somebody to actually even swim in Bamfield Inlet right now. And so there is a challenge right now. There are systems that are just pipes into the inlet, basically from a toilet, kind of in some cases, and which is quite alarming, I think, to anybody who hears that. So one of the possibilities is to do a liquid waste management plan, which Mike can talk a little bit more about. But I think the conversation really needs to ensue about what are the possibilities. Huawei's doing a little bit more technical information on what collection systems could or might look like. From our point of view, we think it's very risky and could be regrettable in the future if we just take the low-hanging fruit without designing collection systems properly, if that in fact is going to go forward, if in fact more than just the partners are going to connect up to this thing to use and benefit the full capacity and contribute to cleaning things up. So with respect to a liquid waste management plan, Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about what that could or might look like?
Sure, a little bit. I'm not certainly the expert in liquid waste management plans themselves. Learned a whole bunch about sewage over my time here, and I never wanted to learn. But so the province, it's a formal planning process. So it's not just about the pipes in the ground part. It's about how development happens. It is about the community input, and so there's sort of the three main parts of the plan. Is it looks at public health, environmental protection, and the public or the community input into this process. And the province has talked to us over the years about starting a liquid waste management plan, and it basically you initiate it and then you work through the planning process with the end result being permits to dispose of the liquid waste in a manner that's approved by the province. And as Mr. Holmes mentioned, there's currently a mix of things. So within Bamfield proper, there is no community sewer. There's some communal sewer. There are some various types of treatment. So type 1 being a typical septic field, then type 2 being more engineered, and type 3 systems being the most expensive engineered systems for some of the larger resorts, as well as outfalls that go directly into the inlet. And that's causing the contamination in Bamfield Inlet to the point that in the summertime, the province regularly closes Bamfield Inlet to swimming because of the high fecal coliform counts. I think we would sort of, in conjunction with Hawaii, staff would be recommending exploring more of the liquid waste management process, and then would lay out how it, it's kind of bouncing around here a little bit, but laying out how the liquid waste basically how the collection system and the sewer system would look. It would look at options for governance, as well as how things could be connected and that. I don't want to talk about the actual pipes, but West Bamfield and East Bamfield are very different because of just where they're located. So the pipe actually physically runs through East Bamfield as well. So I think if the board, is wanting to explore this more, is some initial discussions with the province, and I guess the other part of this, obviously the province and the Ministry of Environment plays a huge role in developing liquid waste management plans, and then recognizing within regional districts we have control over land use and the actual building permit process, but the province is responsible for approving sewage disposal, and the province is responsible for all of the subdivision approval process, both future and everything that's happened in the past in the rural areas, so specifically within Bamfield. So, as staff, we feel that the province has a huge role to play in this. So that's some information, and I can certainly provide the guide. There's a provincial guide to liquid waste management plan. I can provide that to the board, things like that.
So we think the first conversation with the province is in 8 days. Of course, our MLA Minister Osborne will be at a committee of the whole meeting, and we think that's a very good place to sort of update the conversations and then probably follow up with her constituency staff and start talking about the importance of this matter and the situation as it stands today, and just see what kind of response we're getting, and when we get that type of information, when we get a little bit more of the technical information that Hawaii's developing, probably another meeting with Hawaii and see where these conversation goes. I think is sort of the next courses of action. Director Beckett, do you think of anything additionally at this point in time?
No, I think that's a great start. As I've discussed with you before, the issue of that Ministry of Environment report on the water quality and status of the inlet. I think these are all things that we have to dust off and do some due diligence on. But I think what a great opportunity to bring this forward. And I'm wondering, do we need some form of a motion with respect to meeting with Minister Osborne?
I think there's nothing wrong with putting it on the books, and to add this to the list. Will be anything that members of the board think of. We'll be adding to the list on an informal basis, as well as we mentioned, I think yesterday during the board meeting, or maybe the committee meeting. I'm not sure which, but yeah. Certainly at your pleasure, but we certainly intend to add it to the discussion matters and send that in advance to Director or to Minister Osborne's staff.
So is this actually a treatment plant or is it a lagoon?
It's a treatment plant that will be finished the end of this year.
Wow. So can Beaver Creek hook up to it too? Come on, guys. Sure.
If you ask an engineer, they'll say they can design anything.
Yeah, we've seen those engineers work. So if you think it'd be better off for us, Doug, to make a motion on this to put it on the floor, then we can do that. If you think it's just going to flow through anyhow, we'll go from there. I wasn't even meant to be. I was going to say that that Director Beck has found his community a little more flush than it used to be.
Can we make a motion and move on from this, please?
Sure. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the matter of sewage treatment be help me with this, Doug, but discussed at our meeting next Friday with Minister Osborne.
Second. Okay. Anything more on this subject? No. Come on, you guys. Okay. All in favor? Nobody's opposed, so we're carrying on. So questions from the public. Anybody out there? Hello? Nope. Okay, we can consider that done. So a motion to adjourn. We can just sit here right in our chairs and go into the next meeting. Motion to adjourn, Director Shannon, seconder, Director Beckett, all in favor, everybody. Okay, that's it. Thanks. I appreciate all your time and effort.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.